The alpha who adopted me had a severe aversion to the scent of pheromones. Back at the orphanage, when he saw me covered in injuries, he didn't show much expression. "You're a beta, right? As long as you behave, I'll keep raising you." So, on my 18th birthday, when I found out I'd gone through a secondary gender change into an omega, something he deeply despised, I scheduled a surgery to have my glands removed. 1. Recently, a case involving an employee's suicide over being forced to pay an enormous penalty is still making headlines. The victim's family claims the outrageous compensation fee was essentially punishment for accidentally entering heat early and failing to suppress their pheromones. I turned off my phone the moment I heard footsteps. Ethan was coming down the stairs. Unlike his usual suited-up look, he wore a white turtleneck sweater today. It made him look a little less sharp, but only on the surface. Ding! The notification sound echoed unusually loud in the spacious dining room. It was from the doctor's assistant. "Your gland removal surgery is scheduled for 10 a.m. Please arrive 30 minutes early for pre-op screening." I quietly turned off my phone. I wasn't sure if Ethan had seen the message. When I looked up, I happened to meet his gaze. His eyes were completely unreadable. Feeling guilty, I offered an explanation: "Spam text." Ethan simply responded, "MHM," and added, "I'll drop you off at school today, I'm headed that way." I was a little stunned. Ethan's time was worth 7 figures per hour. As his adopted son, I couldn't help but feel guilty about wasting even a second of it. But his offer was tempting. Even if I was skipping class today to go to the hospital. Still, just getting to look at his face, even for a short while. "I'll be ready in a sec." I quickly shoved the half-eaten sandwich into my mouth, took the backpack the housekeeper handed me, and got up to follow him. The car wound its way down the mountain road into the city. In the enclosed space, Ethan's S-rank alpha pheromones were faint but inescapable, like an invisible net slowly closing in around me. Instinctively, I reached for the window button to get some air, only to realize it was locked. Ethan asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." I dug my nails into my palm, hoping the pain would help distract me. "Dad, my club has activities coming up. I won't be coming home for a while. Gland removal surgery requires a recovery period." To be safe, I needed to avoid spending time around Ethan. Even though I knew he was so busy, he probably wouldn't notice whether I was home or not. Sure enough, Ethan didn't press for details. One hand on the steering wheel, he glanced at me briefly, then looked away. "Anything else you want to say?" I couldn't tell if that was a routine question or if he suspected something. "No. I'd let you know if there was." I suddenly regretted asking him to give me a ride. He didn't need to use his pheromones, just that face, just one look from him, was enough to make anyone surrender. I knew that from the very first moment I met him. Lying to someone like him was almost impossible. 2. When the car stopped, Ethan reached over to straighten my coat. He didn't say anything else. He unlocked the doors and let me out. I stood there, watching his car disappear down the road. I tried my best not to touch the back of my neck, where my glands were feeling hot. I'd injected a special suppressant this morning. It's technically banned because of the strong side effects, but it works. It can stop your pheromones from leaking out, and prevent you from reacting to others. But maybe because I'd used it too often, my body had built up resistance. It didn't work today. And that made me nervous. Nervous in the way that only someone standing in front of a powerful S-rank alpha could feel, like there was nowhere to hide. That unfinished news report from breakfast felt like a warning. At Ethan's company, every new hire is told on day 1. You can skip work, show up late, even mess up contracts, but you must control your pheromones. By any means necessary. Because their boss, Ethan, is extremely sensitive to the smell of pheromones. Not allergic, he hates them. Down to his bones and every single cell in his body. Ethan's company keeps the windows open all year round. Every office is stocked with blockers and suppressant patches. At events where Ethan is present, the organizers always prepare a private lounge for him. Just in case some guest can't control their pheromones, and he storms off in disgust. It's his bottom line, the one thing that must not be crossed. That alpha who took his own life, I'd seen him twice. He was a department manager. Rumor had it he'd worked directly under Ethan ever since he took over the company. They'd known each other even longer than Ethan had known me. And even he ended up like that. If Ethan found out I wasn't actually a pheromone-less beta, that promise, if you behave, I'll keep raising you, would disappear along with my identity as an Omega. No. If he finds out I lied, things might turn out even worse. 3. I turned into a small coffee shop down an alley next to the school. Lucas happened to be coming out and wrapped his arm around my shoulder as soon as he saw me. He was a classmate from high school, the only person who knew I was an Omega. You look terrible. Are you sure about this? Is it really worth it for an adoptive father who doesn't care about you at all? Unlike when I put on a good act in front of Ethan, I shrugged off his hand and replied lightly, yes. Yes, it's worth it. Even though I existed as Ethan's adopted son just to disgust him. After Ethan's parents died in an accident, the family fought viciously for control. The elders used Ethan's hatred of pheromones and his inability to continue the family line as leverage against him. To shut them up, Ethan just randomly picked me from the orphanage. Aiden is my son from now on. It's hard to imagine a 20-year-old saying that to a 9-year-old kid. But he actually meant it, so no one dared to laugh at what sounded like a joke. Sometimes I wonder. Ethan has risen to a position where he controls everything, no longer afraid of threats. How much longer will he keep me around? Out of sentiment, or maybe just for appearances, so no one can blame him. He can find any excuse to abandon me, but it can't be because I'm an Omega. To avoid Ethan finding out, or rather, when facing Ethan, I have to be even more careful. I even borrowed Lucas's identity. Luckily, Lucas's father is the director of the hospital where I booked the surgery. Having a connection helped the exams go smoothly, but the gland removal surgery was denied. I stared down at the detailed report with Lucas written on it. For a moment, I thought God was playing a cruel joke on me. The hospital corridor was noisy. Lucas said something beside me. When I ignored him, he leaned closer. Omegas are rare to begin with. And you're top tier. If my father hadn't held down the inspection report, Omegas like you would definitely have been reported to the government for pheromone screening and mate matching. No hospital would agree to gland removal. Unless. I stopped walking and looked at Lucas's hesitant face. Say it. Disabling them, wrecking the glands, no, that would be too painful for you. 4. My phone vibrated in my pocket just then. Seeing the caller ID, I chuckled and patted Lucas on the shoulder, then wrecked them. There's nothing more painful than being abandoned by Ethan. Lucas blinked twice, caught up with me, and muttered, crazy. I made a shushing gesture. I pushed open the hospital door and walked over to a bench on the grass, sat down, and calmed my breath. I answered the call. The person on the other end didn't speak at first, so I obediently explained. I was just playing basketball with classmates earlier. What's wrong? Dad? Saying Dad felt awkward, hiding dirty thoughts beneath. But that wasn't the only reason. More often than not, Ethan didn't even give me a chance to call him Dad. Those first years after I was adopted, Ethan didn't have time to grieve his parents' death before he had to deal with ruthless family members. Endless work piled up, never-ending social engagements. That house always felt cold and empty. And all I could do was sit on the sofa by the door, waiting for Ethan's occasional visits. He always came home a little drunk, maybe 60 to 70% tipsy. Even drunk, Ethan was self-disciplined and polite, never picking up bad habits. I struggled to help him to the bedroom, filled the bathtub, and undressed him. Only then would he affectionately stroke my head and praise me like a reward, good boy. Later, I got busy with school, he with work. Seeing each other became a luxury. He rarely contacted me directly, mostly sending material things through his assistant. Just like his original promise. To raise me, literally. Lost in thought, I heard his faint laugh over the phone. A real laugh, but somehow it sent chills from head to toe. Because Ethan hardly ever smiles, even when he's happy. A poker face is his normal. Aiden, when I said I'd drop you off today, did you know where I was headed? My heart sank. After 2 seconds of silence, Ethan spoke slowly and clearly. Your school. I was invited by your principal to give a talk on investment for your freshmen. Dad wanted to surprise you, but unfortunately you weren't there. Every word hit like a nail in my chest. Though I was standing in sunlight, I felt swallowed by a terrifying darkness. Through the phone, I heard Ethan's voice grow colder. As far as I know, that hospital doesn't have a basketball court. Are you sure your classmates aren't lying? His voice overlapped with reality. His heavy hand pressed down on my shoulder. The pressure wasn't too hard or soft, like his voice, polite but restrained, mixed with a quiet threat ready to snap. Or maybe, Ethan leaned close behind the bench, whispering the unfinished sentence from the call into my ear. Aiden is a liar. 5. Shit. Lucas grabbed me, pulling me up from the bench, muttering curses. Then, realizing what was happening, he stood protectively in front of me. When Ethan's warm hand landed on me, it was like a pressure point strike. I clutched the inspection report tight, unable to move forward or back. There was no time or energy to wonder why Ethan showed up here. What were the odds of Ethan, who had a personal doctor on call 24/7, lowering himself to come to a hospital? He couldn't possibly be here to arrest me. My mind was a mess. Like my heart was about to jump out of my chest. Ethan's gaze passed over Lucas and slowly traveled down to my face. He didn't linger on the report, but pointed at my pants. You weren't wearing these this morning. Just a statement. Of course not. Those pants were bought by Ethan when we went abroad for a conference and then to the mall. One of the few gifts he personally picked out for me. When the housekeeper brought clothes for me to wear, Ethan happened to be nearby, so I couldn't refuse. I was worried about getting them dirty at the hospital, so I changed back at the dorm. But clearly, now wasn't the time to care about that. While I was zoning out, Ethan snatched the report from my hands. He looked down at the crumpled paper, holding it with his impeccably beautiful hands. Time seemed to freeze. Every second was unbearable. I'd already lied as far as I could. There was no way to spin another story. Under the crushing power of absolute strength, my brain's defense mechanism shut down on its own. If Ethan found out I was an Omega, a man like him, rational and refined, probably wouldn't make a scene. He'd choose the most dignified way. Offer a sum of money impossible to refuse, then say goodbye. No, maybe not. The outcome would be like that alpha who made Ethan angry. Maybe even worse. Death or not, for someone like me who should have rotted away in the orphanage long ago, it doesn't matter. What I fear the most, and can't even accept, is Ethan showing even the slightest hint of disgust toward me. 6. Ethan showed no expression. He said, "Go home," then reached over and opened the passenger door for me. On the way, the car sped up more and more. Inside, oxygen felt like an expensive luxury, slowly squeezed out completely. In its place was the overwhelming surge of S-level pheromones. The suppressant really had failed. I even smelled a faint hint of my own peppermint scent leaking out, normally refreshing, but as the cool tail note hit, I felt unbearably hot and restless. For the first time, I truly hated this body. What's the use of being a top-tier Omega? Ethan hates it. He hates any body that carries pheromones. Then this body was useless. No, worse than useless, a worthless piece of trash. Ethan stopped the car, unbuckled his seatbelt, and his lips moved as if to say something, but I lost hearing. He glanced at me once, unbuckled his belt, and walked straight into the house. I tried to focus my vision, but inside, a strange, unfamiliar agitation stirred. Wanting to reach for Ethan's embrace, maybe more. Something I should be able to control. I touched the slightly burning gland and suddenly had an impulse. Self-destruct the gland. If it's destroyed, no pheromones would be produced, and Ethan might still want me. Even if it's just an adoptive father and son relationship. At least I'd have a reason to stay by his side. The bodyguard waiting nearby saw I wasn't coming out and opened the passenger door. He called out, "Young master, Ethan wants you to come in." Breathing in fresh air, I realized sweat had soaked through my clothes. I regained some rationality. But as I stepped out, my knees instinctively gave way, and I knelt on the ground. "Master, how did you manage to make Ethan lose control like this? I've never seen his pheromones so out of control." The alpha bodyguard's face was strained from suppressing the S-level pheromones. I kept my last bit of clarity. "Did you smell anything besides my dad's pheromones? Like, mine?" "No." The bodyguard didn't understand why I asked, but honestly shook his head. "Ethan's pheromones are too strong. You can't smell anything else." I sighed in relief. After resting for a moment, I returned to my bedroom, changed clothes, and went to the end of the hallway. The detention room. 7. I hadn't been to the detention room for a long time. I opened the door and stepped into the darkness. Until I felt myself reach the center and slowly knelt down. The room had no windows. Without the lights on, only the red flashing monitors in the four corners of the ceiling were visible. In the silent room, I could hear my chaotic heartbeat. I couldn't help but recall the terrifying scene at the hospital. Lucas was crying while pointing at the surgery report, putting on a show. "Don't blame Aiden. I made him come with me for the surgery. Aiden never agreed to be with me because you hate pheromones, so I had to cut the glands." At the end, to make it more convincing, he added, "We truly love each other. Not a single flaw." Until Ethan tore up the paper, with a hint of regret in his expression. "Too bad. You two can never be together. Because a top-tier Omega without a lifelong mark, once discovered, becomes a rare commodity to the government. They forcefully match them with highly compatible alphas as spouses. Thanks to Lucas. An alpha pretending to be Omega and lying, all for me." 8. I don't know how long I knelt there until the pain swept through me. Ethan's pheromones almost forced me into heat early. To suppress it, when I got back, I took another injection of suppressant. Side effects vary, and for me they're usually mild, just weakness for a while. But 2 injections in a short time. The pain made me kneel down on the floor, unable to stand. A low moan slipped from between my lips. I bit my lip hard and straightened up on my knees. No. Under the full surveillance of the cameras, Ethan might be watching me through the screen. I couldn't show any sign of abnormality. But once vision fades into darkness, other senses become amplified. It hurts so much. After another muffled groan. Snap. Without warning, the room's lights suddenly turned on. A blast of white light, painfully bright. I couldn't see anything around me. Before I could figure out what happened, a cold male voice, unusually gentle, like a hypnotic serpent's whisper. "Aiden." If I could pull out my courage and look at Ethan's face, more aloof and proud than a Maine Coon cat, I'd want to see if I was already terrified to pieces. Ethan was right there in the room. "Aiden, are you feeling unwell?" He slowly walked over, lowered himself to squat in front of me, and with long fingers, lifted my chin. His calm tone was mixed with temptation. Skin that he touched felt like it was burning. I must have been too focused on whether the hospital knew or not, because only now did I realize the room was filled with heavy pheromones. But this time was different from the suffocating pressure in the car. A dark current flowing, beckoning knowingly toward death, yet with no resistance. And no. I'm not unwell. Seeing his face, I forgot the pain instantly. Forgot this pheromone-induced state, as if my face was branded with "I am Omega." 9. Aiden, how did I raise you to be so dishonest? You were such a good kid when you were little. The chin he was holding suddenly became a grip, clamping tightly. So disobedient. What should I do with you? The drugs and pheromones clashed, and despite the pain and heat, a low moan escaped my lips. Ethan raised an eyebrow, rare for him, then released his hand. His expression unreadable, he stood and approached again. His lower abdomen was only a fist's distance from my face. The warm breath was blocked and bounced back onto me. I must have looked utterly miserable. Ethan barely moved his waist, getting even closer. I stared at the glowing metal buckle in my line of sight, trying not to look down. Soon after Ethan adopted me, I knew that beneath his calm and humble exterior lurked a demon. He liked to see people suffer. On the day he adopted me, the orphanage had healthier betas, but he chose the nearly dying me. The doctor was about to apply medicine to my wounds, but Ethan said he'd do it himself. He deliberately pressed harder on the wounds while applying the medicine, enjoying the expression of pain on my face. At that moment, I knew how to please this adoptive parent so I wouldn't be thrown back into that dark, filthy, and rotten place worse than a cesspool. I cleaned the room originally used for storage and even bought a surveillance camera. Whenever I displeased him, I'd voluntarily kneel in this room as punishment. Each time, kneeling on something different, broken cups, or rose stems covered with thorns. I always got forgiven quickly and was treated by him personally. So when I found out Ethan was angry, I came here immediately. Now his hint was obvious. My trembling hand reached for his belt but couldn't undo it, fumbling multiple times. What are you shaking for? Ethan covered the back of my hand and helped me undo it. Click. The leather snapped crisply through the air. I held the belt tightly, looking up with reverence. Hands offered, Dad. Ethan lowered his gaze, as if staring at the belt resting quietly in my hands, or maybe at me. He didn't move for a long time. Is he your boyfriend? His voice was so low I couldn't hear any other emotion. It took me a while to understand he meant Lucas. I didn't know why Ethan suddenly asked that, but I gave the most cautious answer. Dad doesn't like him. I won't see him anymore. A crawling pain spread all over me, like thousands of tiny insects biting. My knees nearly gave out, my body slid down but was caught by a large hand. Ethan's expression was hard to read, yet calm as he asked another question. Have you done it? My hands holding the belt trembled. I just wanted the punishment to be quick, so I answered quickly. Saturday. An S-level alpha's night vision is strong. Even if I lied that I had been kneeling all along and hadn't sat, I probably couldn't fool him. Better to tell the truth. 10. Dad, don't be mad. I held out the belt in my hand. Ethan took it and held it in his palm. I closed my eyes, waiting for the punishment to fall, but it never came. Until the door closed again, leaving me alone in the detention room. Ethan didn't punish me. That unsettled me more than being beaten would have. I kept replaying everything that happened today, trying to analyze it. But I couldn't find any satisfying conclusion. In the days after, I didn't stay at school as I'd said. Instead, I went home every day. But I never saw Ethan again. Still, I felt the metaphorical knife hanging over my head was even closer. At noon in the school cafeteria, after rejecting an Omega's confession, Lucas came over carrying his tray and sat across from me. Why have you been avoiding me lately? Did your adoptive dad give you a hard time when you got home that day? I shook my head silently. If you ask me, you're still a top-tier Omega with hands and feet. You might as well move out of that house. If you like older guys, I can introduce you to some graduate senior brothers, gentle and caring, way better than your adoptive dad who can't even fart properly. I put down my chopsticks. Done talking? Maybe my glare was too cold, because Lucas quickly muted himself and obediently ate. When he raised his glass to drink, I asked, is there any medicine that can destroy the glands? Pfft. Lucas sprayed out half his water and food. Luckily, I'd anticipated it well enough. I stood up and slung my backpack over my shoulder, patting his shoulder. For saving your life once, be a good errand boy, and... Lucas coughed hard, struggling to ask, what? Don't come looking for me if there's nothing important. I don't want to make Ethan angry. From behind came Lucas's exasperated voice, Aiden, what kind of Omega is as ruthless as you? 11. I felt like Ethan and I were in a Cold War. We rarely saw each other before, but he at least called or asked his assistant about me. This time it's been almost half a month with no contact. I didn't dare look for Ethan. But Lucas brought the medicine first. Are you sure about this? If you inject this, your glands will be truly destroyed. You won't even have body odor, won't you become a monster? What's so special about your adoptive dad that you do this? I fiddled with the faintly pink syringe in my hand, my heart finally settling. You don't understand. Not just Lucas, sometimes even I wonder. Is it really worth it? Like a dog that neither pain nor scolding can chase away, clinging to Ethan. But that's Ethan, the one who saved me from misery, asked for nothing in return, and said he'd raise me. So yeah, it's worth it. You're a top-tier Omega. If you deliberately use pheromones to tempt someone, even the most determined alpha can't resist. Lucas pressed on. No. Ethan hates pheromones. Damn it, forget you. Just as I was about to inject, Ethan's secretary called. Ethan's been hospitalized. Rushing to the hospital, my palms still clenched the medicine that could destroy my glands. I slipped it into my pocket. The assistant said, there's been a series of disputes triggered by the project manager's suicide. Not only dealing with internal company matters, but public opinion as well. Even Ethan's dislike of pheromones has been twisted by malicious media. Twisted? Turns out the project manager leaked important company secrets, was told to compensate, and in desperation planted a heat phase Omega in Ethan's office. Hitting all the right nerves, it made Ethan furious. He used some methods to push the alpha to despair, who then chose to end his life. His family was incited by Ethan's side to throw mud, even steering the narrative toward gender discrimination. Ethan's barely slept these days, putting those people in jail. Then he fell ill just as he entered his heat phase. Just as I reached for the door handle, I pulled my hand back. I mechanically asked, what? Ethan hates pheromones. You're a beta, so you can take care of him. Hurry inside. Without any guard up, I was pushed inside the dark, prison-like hospital room by the assistant. 12. No one knew, maybe not even Ethan remembered. Before adopting me, we'd already met. He wasn't an adult yet, and I was very young, too young to remember details. I only recalled it was his first heat phase. He was being chased, running frantically until he reached the vegetable garden behind the orphanage. His deep gray, beautiful eyes were bloodshot. Clearly, someone had drugged him to bring on his heat early. Heat phase alphas are especially irritable, S-level ones even more so, with an unusual sensitivity to blood and excitement. But Ethan, with that pretty face, calmly warned me as I tried to approach. I feel like killing someone. Stay away. Ignorant and fearless. Covered in dirt and grime, I stretched out my arms innocently. Big brother, I miss my mom. The orphanage director said today's my birthday, so I'm allowed out for an hour. Can you hug me? Actually, it wasn't true. I'd never had parents. He was dressed finely and expensively. The director said people like that, rich but naive, were the easiest to deceive. When I reached into his pocket, he suddenly bit my shoulder with sharp teeth. Blood dripped from his teeth, soaking my dirty short sleeves. After a while, he calmed down. Does it hurt? Yes. But I was used to it. I shook my head and tried to leave with the stolen wallet. But he called after me. Little liar, take the money but leave the wallet. When he saw me stunned, the young man's brows lifted slightly, and with blood still at the corner of his lips, like a starving wolf after a feast, he explained. There's a tracker inside. They'll find you. 500 yuan spared me a beating, but that smile haunted me for a long time. 13. I stood at the door for a moment until I heard Ethan's breathy voice say, come in. The private ward was hidden behind heavy curtains. Alpha isolation wards are made of special materials. Not only to block sound well but also to keep the overwhelming pheromones inside from leaking out. I felt like walking in now was pure suicide. I thought I wouldn't see Ethan for a while. I thought that medicine I had, the one that could destroy the glands, would work, so I hadn't taken any special suppressants. Just standing at the door, my body was already weakening. Aiden, come here, be good. Near the window stood a vague silhouette, tall and unshakable. Hearing that coaxing voice, I took a couple of steps but trembled and fell to my knees. I tried to support myself but couldn't stand. Ethan turned his head to watch me. As always, looking down from above, calm and composed. He lowered his eyes and said lightly, "Crawl here." Just those 3 words sent shivers from scalp to toes. I wanted to run, but my body obeyed the order. Those few steps were agonizingly difficult. The spot on the back of my neck, subtle yet burning hot, along with the secret bite marks hidden under my collar for years, flared up. That strange feeling swept over me like sun-baked waves crashing again and again. Even without much biology class knowledge, I knew this useless body was being seduced into heat. I looked up desperately, hoping Ethan hadn't noticed. Maybe he had, or maybe the alpha in heat had little reason left. His face showed only a barely concealed rage. Without much disgust. As I got closer, Ethan squatted down like in the detention room and leaned in. In the dim room, he precisely pressed his fingers on my burning gland. Not hard, just a teasing tickle that wasn't quite satisfying. He must have been applying some force. Thinking this, Ethan pulled his hand back indifferently. His thumb and forefinger opened slightly and gently squeezed my Adam's apple. "Lucas is an alpha. Since you said you did it with him, did he mark you?" I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. A nightmare where the truth is torn open in blood but I have no power to fight back. The gland on the back of my neck uncontrollably released that nauseating minty cool scent, blending with Ethan's exclusive alpha incense-like pheromones in the closed room. Such a cold, almost desireless fragrance, but it drove one mad with lust. I heard myself plead, almost begging, "No. He's not my alpha." An alpha in heat is unreasonable, almost violent, and if displeased can become destructive. With the most vulnerable spot in my body in his grip, his pressure increasing, I heard him calmly ask, "Then who is your alpha?" "Dad, mark me, please mark me." Ethan suddenly laughed, leaning down to rub my neck, half helpless, half warning. "Calling me Dad at a time like this isn't appropriate." 14. Heat phase colliding with alpha's heat period could really kill you. The tangled figure held me tightly, taking and giving freely. How long it lasted, I no longer remembered. The assistant knocked twice but Ethan shouted roughly, "Get lost." After that, silence. When I woke, my waist was tightly held, skin scorching hot. My neck felt like it had been bitten through. More brutal than any bullying I'd endured in the orphanage. But since it was from Ethan, it didn't really hurt. Ethan hadn't woken, eyes closed, long lashes casting thin shadows in the dim room. His breathing was a bit rapid, brow furrowed slightly with a trace of unease, even his hair was messy. The scratches I'd left on him reminded me again of our wildness. Honestly, from Ethan, I never expected anything. It was love, infatuation, with him, wanting to be by his side, even if someone like him, a favored son of heaven, didn't deserve me. But in the end, the one who dragged him down from the pedestal was me. I destroyed this already fragile relationship with my own hands. I knew Ethan was in heat. I knew he couldn't resist omega pheromones right now. Yet when I could have left, I chose to stay. When Ethan wakes, he'll probably hate pheromones even more and resent me for taking advantage of him. I picked up my torn clothes and threw them in the trash. Fortunately, Ethan brought a change of clothes. I found something to put on. I got him water and wiped his face. Feeling his burning body, I realized he had a fever. Remembering the assistant's words, I finally understood. The dangerously high temperature Ethan had earlier wasn't just normal heat phase reaction. It was a fever. A sick body with such explosive power. What would normal look like? At that moment, I truly understood how terrifying my adoptive father was. 15. I tidied up the room as best as I could to look decent. Luckily, the assistant returned to the company, so I only had to face the hesitant doctor. Your body, are you alright? I shook my head. Please check on my father. He still has a fever. The doctor's expression deepened. Even if it wasn't about the short-term marking on the back of the neck, the sheer amount of pheromones in the room needed no explanation. My phone rang. It was Lucas. I stepped out into the corridor to answer. Bad news. Lucas rushed into the hospital. I realized he wasn't exaggerating. The report archives were discovered by my dad's superior. They found out I'm not a high-quality Omega. The government sent officers to search. Did you destroy your glands? Lucas suddenly muted himself, face full of horror. You've been marked by an S-level alpha. Damn, I said. I've been calling for 2 days with no answer. Didn't you say the one you liked was Ethan? I was just glad I had foresight to pull Lucas to the hospital's back plaza. If we'd been in the corridor, with his voice, probably the whole building would have heard. It's him. He's in heat, and I took advantage. I explained simply, but Lucas shook his head hard. No way. Ethan hates pheromones so much, there's no way he'd let them spread. He'd have taken suppressants early. You don't understand alphas. When it comes to seducing and claiming their Omega, all alphas' bones and hearts are rotten. 16. I thought Lucas was exaggerating and wanted to deny it. But Lucas kept talking. Why else would the assistant call you over? Don't say it's just because you're beta. I wanted to say it was because I'm beta, the adopted son. That's exactly why they chose me. That day at the hospital, do you think he really believed my bullshit? Alpha knows alpha best. He didn't believe a word, and his eyes were full of possessiveness when he looked at you. Nothing happened between you two that day at home. I was honest. He asked if we'd done it. I said yes. Of course, the misunderstanding of doing it, meaning sitting, was unnecessary to explain. Aiden, I've treated you like a brother. Do you want me dead or what? Lucas jumped back like his life depended on it, about 10 feet away, but then leaned in to ask when I squinted and searched my pockets, what's wrong? My heart sank. I lost the medicine, the one that destroys glands. I need to go find it. Though I wore Ethan's shirt, my pants were my own, and I clearly put it in my pants pocket. Lucas couldn't believe it. Ignoring alpha/beta differences, he grabbed my wrist. At a time like this, still thinking about destroying your glands? If you don't want the government to catch and pair you off, maybe you should just let Ethan mark you for life. I thought Lucas had to be crazy to say that. Lucas shivered when I stared at him and, without thinking, said, if worse comes to worst, I'll mark you, and then you can. Then what? A cold, slightly sick voice cut the space sharply between Lucas and me. Lucas cursed loudly, damn ghost. Then saw who entered and instantly shut up. I nervously called out, Dad. 17. Ethan strode past me with long legs and walked straight to Lucas. I'm curious, if a top blood specialist knew his biological son shamelessly sexually harassed an Omega marked by an alpha, how would he react? Do you want me to call the cops? That last sentence was directed at me. I bit my lip, feeling my face flush warmly the moment he appeared. Lucas trembled, no need, wish you two a long life together, many kids, a toad marrying a frog, a perfect match. By the time I registered this, Ethan was already gone. I avoided the scorching gaze that could burn a hole. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. Regret for saving this ungrateful wolf, or if he didn't even have the heart to be angry. He pulled a small, faintly pink transparent vial from his pocket. Is this yours? I wanted to say no but nodded anyway. At this point, there was no need to hide anything. As my fingertips touched the vial resting in his palm, Ethan took me into his arms with his other hand. Unlike the faint scent from the gland, the original owner's pheromones were fiercer and more aggressive. Possessiveness that seemed to want to crush or swallow a person whole. I'm Ethan's Omega. Realizing this didn't make me happy. It made me humbly plead, Dad, please give me the medicine. If my glands are destroyed, I won't produce pheromones. And I won't make you hate me. Ethan stiffened for a moment, then tightened his grip on my waist. Do you want me to destroy my own Omega with my own hands? Aiden? You little liar, after all these years, you're still as shameless as ever. The vial in my hand was crushed. Glass cut my skin, blood flowing through my fingers, pulling me back to the day we first met. Ethan remembered. My little liar, if you don't want the government to take you away, you'll have to be marked for life. But, you're not. He hates pheromones. He only adopted me because I'm beta. Ethan loosened his grip, and through the fabric, lightly rubbed the faded bite mark on my shoulder. His body still radiated heat from the fever. If it's you, then it's okay. Ethan took my hand and slowly intertwined our fingers. When you get better, we'll end the adoption. 18. Side story, Ethan. What does it feel like to be stabbed in the back by the one you trust most? To gain shares, my aunt conspired with outsiders to inject inducements into children under 16 at a party, forcing them prematurely into heat. The pheromones from the forced Omega made me feel like I was controlled by an invisible hand. I hated this body ruled by lust and losing control. So I smashed a glass, cut my hand, and after regaining consciousness, escaped through a window, leaving behind the shocked Omega. I wandered, hiding in the shadows waiting for my bodyguard when I met a ragged kid. I'd never seen such a dirty child. The forcibly suppressed pheromones inside him were on the verge of rebellion. I let him go, afraid I might kill him otherwise. The kid was dirty, but his eyes were bright and dazzling. More beautiful than any jewel I'd ever seen. Unfortunately, such beautiful eyes hid a wicked heart. He lied and approached me only to steal my money, just like my aunt who hurt me. Out of revenge, I bit him. At that moment, looking at his blood-stained clothes, I kindly warned him that his wallet had a tracker. He was stunned and dumbfounded, not like the mischievous kid he'd been. More like a fool. Since then, in countless midnight dreams, I see those eyes. After my parents' tragic fate, I would drive to that orphanage when I felt weak, secretly watching him through the fence. He was always bruised, because as a beta, he had no chance of adoption. The director despised him, and peers isolated him. But he was like a log, letting the abuse happen without resistance. Once, I overheard someone forcing him to steal money. He obediently left and sat on a stone far outside the orphanage for a long time. As if he had made a decision, he moved the stone and dug with his bare hands for a long time. Until he found a plastic bag. Inside were some bills I immediately recognized as my money. Kids in the orphanage probably didn't know these were foreign bills, but seeing all the zeros, they might have thought it was a fortune. A tormenting fortune. The assistant reminded me it was time to leave. For the first time, I felt an indescribable emotion. The little liar returned the money and covered the hole with the stone again. When he returned empty-handed to the orphanage, he was inevitably beaten badly. By the time the bodyguard called to say he was beaten badly, my car was already far away. The meeting was already 5 minutes late, but I ordered a U-turn. When he saw me arrive, he slightly shrank back and hid behind the other kids. He thought I had forgotten him. I pretended not to care and asked, "Are you beta?" It didn't matter whether he was or not. As long as you behave, I'll always take care of you. Even if you don't behave, I still will. Maybe I really do have an untouchable soft spot, but if it's you, it doesn't matter.